Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart, Crazy Dee.
This is Like It Is Radio, Black Intelligent Talk Radio.
Looking good. Okay, we're gonna go one more. Good deal. Thank you.
So Cheryl, tell them what the show is about today.
I'm Cheryl Langford. I'm hosting Ladies First this morning. It's a spin-off show of Like It Is Radio. Thank you, Franklin, for the wonderful opportunity. What we're going to talk about today is marijuana and the youth. Marijuana was legalized exactly a little bit over a year ago, July 1st, 2017. So we're going to talk to the youth about just about how they're feeling about it, if there are any concerns about it, because now that it's legalized, are they more open to maybe trying it? So that's basically it. I just think that it's important to speak to the youth and just find out what they're feeling.
How much time
we
got, B?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, one question for you.
Minute and a half.
Okay, minute and a half. Thank you, B.
Mm-hmm.
Is it weed, marijuana, or is cannabis legal?
Well, that's a very good question, and we have a lady named Aisha here that can define those terms, because it's marijuana cannabis, it's cannabis weed. I don't want to answer that. I'm going to leave that to our guests to answer that question.
Okay, we have a quick question before the show starts. Is weed, marijuana, cannabis? Is cannabis, marijuana, and weed, or is that just which one got legalized?
The answer is yes. I just try not to use the word marijuana because it has derogatory notions. It was used negatively in regards to Latin descendants.
And you are on film.
You on film, you on air.
So this is the disclaimer now. You get it right. Okay, I'm sorry, but the show getting ready to start. So this is the disclaimer. You're on film, you're on live stream, and you are given permission to do so. And when Cheryl's ready.
Good morning, Las Vegas. Welcome to Like It Is Radio. I know you were expecting to hear Franklin's voice this morning, but you're getting me, Cheryl Langford, for this segment of Ladies First. For all of you who don't know, I am the softer side of Franklin Burley. That's right. I am that softer side of Franklin Burley. Everybody says that. Now we all know Franklin can bring on the testosterone. And we all can agree to disagree, even though there might be some furniture moving. I'm just saying Ladies First is softer. It's different dialogue and some different topics. Franklin isn't in studio today. He's out and about in the community. One thing about Franklin, he goes above and beyond to keep us, the family, in the know. And I have to say, he keeps us well connected about all things that can and all things that will affect us and our community, whether it's socially, politically, globally, even financially. Whatever it is, he keeps us well connected. And he also does his due diligence by providing us with valuable information. He provides us with perspective, forward thinking, and knowledge. And I often refer to him as the father of knowledge. He says he isn't. But how many of us received, embraced, and shared what we've learned from him? Like I said, the father of knowledge. So with that being said, thank you, Franklin, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to do another segment of Ladies First. On Ladies First, we talk about those issues that affect us, women. However, men, make sure you listen in too, because if it affects us, guess what? It definitely affects you too. And I assure you, you are going to get a lot of valuable information. On Ladies First, we've discussed everything from women's health and mental health issues, to finances, to relationships, which is always a hot topic because there are so many components to having relationships, especially when exes and children are involved, and that's a lot of times. We have even had discussions on raising our children. And that's what we're going to discuss today, because when recreational use of marijuana became legal in Nevada on July 1st, 2017, just over a year ago, I take it that millions of that has been made off marijuana, and the money that was supposed to support the Clark County School District from the marijuana just haven't quite made it to the funding of our schools yet. It's obvious because they have cut millions of dollars from the CCSD budget for the 2018-2019 school year. So let's not educate the youth, let's just get them high. Is that what we're doing? Helping us to discuss the dialogue on marijuana and the youth, we have in studio today several individuals who will help us understand what marijuana is and how it is going to affect our future, which is our children. I would like to first introduce Aisha Goins, who is an author, an advocate, a columnist, and cannabis blogger for Blackabis. She is also a consultant for businesses on how to navigate the cannabis industry through her company, Greenbridge Consulting Group. Welcome, Aisha, to Ladies First.
Thank you very much for having me.
We just heard the introductory from the 1936 film, Reefer Madness. That was 82 years ago. What he's speaking of was 82 years ago. And it wasn't concerned about the adults in marijuana. It was targeted towards its use amongst the youth in marijuana. A discussion that we're having here today in 2018. Is that stigma about marijuana still relevant today, Aisha? Is it still relevant today, that stigma?
The stigma itself isn't. However, the use, how it's affecting the children, I can foresee that being an issue. We can see the lack of understanding that there need to be education on how this was going to affect our youth, affect our teens, in their lifestyle and their everyday activities. I think it was negligent in that part. However, the stigma of Reefer Madness, and I want to be clear about that, the stigma of Reefer Madness was released specifically to control cannabis in the world and in the nation of USA specifically. So that stigma is not right. However, as we are evolving in this industry, it's becoming more important to us and more relevant. Yes, we're having a scenario where we didn't take into consideration how this would affect our youth.
And how is it affecting our youth?
So I know I have a 14-year-old son. He'll be 15 in September. There's not enough education. One of the things that I've had to do personally is be mindful of the conversations that I'm having with my child and then my nieces and my nephews. And I try to make it important to explain that we're still in a dosing mindset and not necessarily like we're just getting high. And verbiage, words matter. My mentor always taught me that words matter. And if we're having conversations where we're talking about cannabis as it relates to recreation, then yes, we're doing our children an unjust. But if we're having a conversation as it relates to treatment and dosing, then we're changing the conversation and we're delivering new words to our youth as it pertains to marijuana. And then you're explaining to them that, yes, this might be a space that you may need it. Let's get to a space where your brain is developed or use a non-psychoactive portion, and we're using it for dosing as a treatment and not to just be getting high.
So do you think that with the number of teens that are possibly using it, and like you said, you do have some concerns about it, do you think they're going to have to start some type of programs to help teens?
So I know that those things are already in the works. I know the Department of Taxation is already putting together some programs that will roll out educational information for schools and just kind of like center stuff. They'll be doing bringing people in to do some conversations. However, as it goes nationwide, as it becomes legal nationwide, I think that we need to focus more on how this needs to be explained in the school district. So for example, where there is a sex education, I think there needs to be more of a drug education, cannabis education along that same lines. I think that would be the resolve to where we're headed.
Okay. Is there a difference between weed, marijuana, and cannabis? Is there a difference? All right, Crazy Dee, that's for you.
So I have as an advocate, I have my own pet peeves, right? Marijuana has a bit of a racist undertone to it because it was the word that derived from when they were talking about cannabis as it pertains to our brown. So I don't like to use the word marijuana. I try to keep that out of my conversation. I do, however, will use the word weed often when I'm talking to my peers, just mostly because I know that that's a word that we identify with. And so if I'm not having a conversation like this, then I will communicate about and use the word weed just because that's a dialogue that they're comfortable with. However, cannabis is the more appropriate and scientific term because it derives from the word, what it is, the cannabis plant, which has cannabinoids. So that's why we use the word cannabis. Not getting all technical, but that's the reason why. And so I choose to use the word cannabis, and I would love for everybody to also adopt that word into their vocabulary. Let's start getting in the habit of not use the word marijuana, but move towards the more technical term.
Okay. And the dispensaries. I've heard so many different things that the dispensaries. Well, let me ask you this: what is synthetic cannabis? Or is there synthetic cannabis?
So synthetic cannabis, you won't find synthetic cannabis in the dispensary. That is the exact reason why cannabis had to be regulated for it to be sold in dispensaries. So synthetic is, I'm laughing because I just do not understand why Big Pharma will want to take something that they know works and then synthesize it. It just makes absolutely no sense, but that's what it is. It's a man-made ideal of what cannabis can and does do in a person's body.
Now, can that be more dangerous than what?
Oh,
what
absolutely.
Natural cannabis?
Anything synthetic or man-made is typically later not really great for us, right? So imagine that with drugs. Mm-hmm. So we have an opiate abuse problem, right? They're having so many issues with synthetic drugs and how it reacts and responds to people's bodies because it's synthetic. Why are we taking something that we know grows from the ground? And I don't say that as if to say, oh, it's great because it grows from the ground. I'm saying that we're moving into a holistic lifestyle as it is because synthetic is messing up our bodies, giving us cancer, giving us lupus, giving us, all of these diseases. Because lupus is something that all of a sudden we woke up and people have lupus, right? So we're moving into the more synthetic things we introduce into our bodies, the worse our bodies are. So I feel the same way about cannabis. But I don't want to. I answered your question, right? So I don't want to keep dialoguing. So
No. So, what are some of the side effects of cannabis? With I don't know if there are different side effects for adults versus the youth. What are some of the side effects?
So scientists says that young people should not be partaking in cannabis under the age of 16 because their brains are still developing. Okay? So just in general, we shouldn't be introducing any drugs that have a mental effect on our youth before the age of 16. To me, that means any drug, right? So I didn't introduce my son to, my son has slight autism, and they wanted to put him on drugs. And so I didn't introduce my son to the Ritalin and those kind of things because it was a brain changing drug, right? So I opted to give my son CBD, which is cannabidiol, which is a non-psychoactive form of cannabis, and I was able to get results from that. So I think that if we are introducing anything that's going to change their brain waves, we shouldn't be doing that until their brains are fully developed. And that's just in general. So of course cannabis would fall under that lines. I try not to say cannabis in general because then people go, oh, cannabis is bad. However, so is Ritalin, so is all of the other mind-altering drugs that we're introducing to our children. So I think that we could get more results if we use more authentic and wholesome and holistic results to our children, like maybe taking them outside to play, teaching them. Because you can always teach new habits, right? So teaching them new habits on how to control their mindsets and things like that, taking them off of sugar. There's things that we can do. Well, that goes for cannabis as well. We shouldn't be introducing cannabis to our youth if their brains aren't developed because it's going to be mind-altering and they're not going to grow into that effect, into their fullness.
And what part of cannabis is the part that gets you high?
So it's tetrahydrocannabinol, which is actually THC. So that portion of the cannabis plant will absolutely have mind-altering effects. However, it is administered in so many different ways. to so many different people that it's difficult to say at what point a person would have a psychoactive effect to it. So it can be altered where you may not have psychoactive. You may just get your body may be affected from it. However, the way that people are just getting into dispensaries, if you're just purchasing over the counter, I can guarantee you're having some psychoactive effects too.
And I'll ask you this last question. We'll allow the other guests to join in. If your cannabis is laced, do you know that it is? Can you really tell? Does it taste different? Does it smell different? What?
So in the state of Nevada, and kudos, I always do this, kudos to the Department of Taxation, Department of Behavioral Health, also to the city and the jurisdictions for being very specific about making sure that the things that you purchase in our dispensary has been tested thoroughly. So nothing that you purchase in the dispensaries here in Las Vegas, Nevada, or in the Nevada governing body should be laced because it won't hit the floor if it's not tested. And the dispensaries take their licenses and they're privileged to have that license very serious. They won't buckle on having anything in their dispensary that hasn't been tested. So if you're purchasing something that's in our dispensaries, it won't be laced. However, there is still a black market. And that black market, I don't foresee that black market going away anytime soon. And some people would like to call it the venture of cannabis small business. I call it what it is, and it's a black market. And because you can't regulate black market on anything, right? You get Louis Vuitton purses, they're bootleg, that's still black market. So in the same aspect of cannabis, you don't know what you're getting. They tell you that it's, let's say some strain, because strain names are so many different things, and you might be smoking dirt, right? You may think that you're getting an edible, and it's just, usually will tell them do not do edibles. Like I'm just not a fan of edibles because it's very difficult to monitor how much you're going to intake. Even though in Nevada the regulation is 10 milligrams. 10 milligrams is even too much. You should probably start at 5 and then go up. But it's concentrated. So, we use oil to bake. When you use oil, it's like all gooey and it's thick. Well, it's the same idea with THC. It's gooey and it's thick, and that's what they use to make edibles. So.
Well, Aisha, thank you for all that valuable information. That was a lot of information, but it was a lot of interesting, good information that we needed to hear because, we get it from somebody that this is what they do.
Right.
We're not going online getting maybe sometimes misleading information. Right. So thank you, and I think that when our youth is being involved in this, they need to have good information and good knowledge so that they can arm themselves.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. So we do have other people in the studio. We have from Teen Talk, which airs every Saturday from 12 noon to 1 o'clock. Right here at KCP in the studio, we have Cherie Perry and Sean Roberts. And we have my niece, Armani Valentine, and her mother, Lorene, who is going to join this conversation about marijuana and the youth. Welcome to Ladies First. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation because it's important to hear your views. So I would like to ask, and whomever would like to answer first, what is your opinion about marijuana?
Hi, this is Cherie from Teen Talk. My opinion on marijuana, I actually personally think it's a great thing for medical uses. I feel that it can actually help people of young ages. I know there was one girl who she had seizures multiple times a day, and the only way to stop them was to have marijuana, but she couldn't have it in her state, so she moved to Colorado. So I feel that if it's used in a medical purpose, I feel it is very useful. Instead of people using it for recreational use, then I feel if you do it at home, you do it like a recreational use, it's just fine. But out in public, I also feel like it's bad. So I feel like it has a good and bad connotation with it, just a little.
Okay, and this is Sean Roberts from Teen Talk. My opinion is, like Cherie said, I think it's good for people who need it rather than people who don't, because now that it's legalized, you have certain people who are able to obtain how much you get and then sell it to maybe their brothers or stuff like that, they don't need it. And this goes into schools as well. They sell in the schools. That's not good as well. And it also impacts people who are trying to get jobs because you know how when you want to get a job, you have to take a drug test, right? Now that it's legalized, you got all these people who fail their drug test because they can't get into a job because they're smoking weed. That's it. But for me, I just don't. I think it's a good idea for people who need it versus people who don't need it.
Okay. And Armani? You have to say something. It's okay that your mother is here. Her mother
Pressure,
is
pressure.
a little like, well, just be honest. Like seriously, because we have my sister and I, we have a very open relationship with our daughters about this, and this is something we go back and forth on all the time. And believe it or not, my sister's opinion and my opinion differs. You know, but I still love her. So Armani, just be honest and say whatever it is you feel, because what you feel, other teenagers are feeling the same thing.
Okay, this is Armani Valentine, and I think marijuana, like, if you don't need it, I don't think you should do it, but if you do, like, if you're prescribed it or whatever, I think it's a good idea, but if you don't need it, it's not good for you, but to just get high. And when you get high, you don't do nothing but really go to sleep. It's you wasting your money for no reason, basically, and you wasting your time of day.
Okay, and we're actually going to ask Lorene, her mother, what she thinks. And she's raising girls. She has 5 daughters. So it's a conversation, like I said, we have all the time. So what do you think about marijuana?
Again, I'm Lorene. I think it has its goods and bad to it. I believe, just going back, like, as far as, like, the medical, as everybody said, as far as the medical and health issues that you may have, yes, it's good for you. But as far as, like, the kids and just, what is the word, recreational, I don't think that it's, I don't know how to explain. I don't think that it's, it's good for, but as far as, like, just the health wise, as far as the people that's doing it with the issues, I promote it. I do, honestly. I promote it for that, but as far as, like, the kids and all that, I don't agree with that. I really don't.
Okay. And back to the youth, I want to ask, do you think that because it's legal, do you feel more teenagers are more inclined to want to experiment with it? Whomever want to answer first.
Yes, now that it's legal, like I said again, I think the ages are 21 or above to purchase.
In the
Not correct?
dispensaries, yes.
Okay. That can be used to give to younger teens. Now, that can very affect, like I said, schools again. It's not good at all because of the mindset that you get into, and then that impacts the school. Graduation rate drops because kids are not graduating. They can't study, right, because, of the marijuana. I just think it's a good idea.
I mean, I partially have to disagree because marijuana is also, they say it's a stimulant for the brain, so it actually, for some people, it helps them with their, like, math and stuff like that, with numbers and such. I watched a show on Netflix. It was called Super High Me, kind of like Super Size Me, but with marijuana, where a guy spent 30 days without marijuana and then 30 days with marijuana to see a difference. And his math grade that he had went up by like 30%. So I kind of have to disagree with what you said. But it does actually, because teens are in school now, do want marijuana more because it's legal and it's more accessible to them. Because they could just say, hey, older brother or older sister, can you go buy this for me real quick? Yeah, sure, I got you, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, at least I'm doing this with the people I know and people I care about, but it's like, it's still also affecting your head at a young age, and it can shape your mindset for when you get older.
What was the question again?
Do you think, being that marijuana is legal now, that more teens are inclined to try it, that want to try it because it's legal?
Yeah, I think so because just because it's illegal, they were doing it before it was even legal. Like they didn't care about it anyway. So with it being legal, it doesn't like it seems like oh okay, it doesn't matter what age they are, they can do it. If you're not above that age to do it, or if you don't think it's good for you, I don't think you should do it anymore.
Okay. So you guys do agree then that because it's legal, more teens are more apt to try and get sugar?
I disagree. I disagree because to keep it so 100, teens were smoking weed before it was legal. Before now you get so much history on what it's made of, what it can do, the side effects. They were doing it before then. I don't think that it being legal made them smoke more. I think it being legal just made it okay for them, more or less than, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, and all the kids are doing it. You hang with somebody, 9 times out of 10, they're smoking because that's the hype right now in 2018. That's what it is with all kids. I don't think the legalization really had anything to do with it because if you look at it, like I said before, they were smoking it before. It just made it even better for them to smoke more and use that excuse. It's legal now.
And we do have Coach Mumford in here to join the conversation. And I see you have something you wanted to say. So, he said he really sat straight up in his seat. But I would like to bring into the conversation Coach Stephen Mumford, who is a high school football and basketball coach and has also taught in the classroom in the Las Vegas area. So, what would you like to say about all of this?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. In terms of, one of the things that, because we're talking about teens and how they feel towards marijuana or towards cannabis, I've spoken to teens, and sometimes the feeling is since it's legal for them, and so I've actually been into the courts. And it's definitely not legal if you're under 18. In fact, they will classify that as a felony if you are caught with that. And so those kinds of things have to, when you're talking about education, that has to be passed on to the teenagers. That it's legal for adults, but it's not legal for you, and they will come down hard on you if they catch you with that drug. And so that's something that I think a lot of teens don't understand those consequences.
And do you think that they don't understand that there are ramifications? For example, like Sean said, you're being drug tested for jobs. And if you can't pass a drug test, you're not getting a job.
Oh, yeah,
also want to say you can lose your scholarship behind marijuana. And I know of a couple high schoolers that graduated with full ride scholarships lost their scholarships because of marijuana. So I just don't think that they understand the ramification and the consequences.
Well, I've seen that, and it's not only that. CCSD, as a football coach, the rules for an athlete under CCSD is that they can drug test you anytime.
Okay, say that again.
They can drug test you anytime as an athlete, as with CCSD. And so once that happens and you test positive, then I'm not going to say it goes on a permanent record, but if college coaches, different people are coming by asking about that athlete, that's something that has to be discussed. And just like you said, I've seen athletes lose scholarships. And it's not just about the scholarships. It's just about as you are looking to go on to college, it should be a decision that you're gonna, if that's something that's serious, that you're serious in doing and accomplishing, that you have to be, if cannabis is something that you're interested in, it's something that you're going to have to put on hold until you get to where you want to be. And so, and it's, as a coach, I've coached I've coached youth athletics all the way up to high school for probably about 14 years here in Vegas. And I've noticed there's been a difference. You know, some of the athletes that I've coached as youngsters, now they're all getting ready to graduate. And through those years, as I've watched them, I've seen some do fine, but I've seen a lot of them, probably the ones that have challenges now, 100% of them started out with marijuana. And I saw a gradual uptick as marijuana started to become legal. I saw an uptick on its use, and it became more of an issue for us as coaches in terms of something that we had to deal with.
Would you guys agree or disagree that marijuana is a gateway drug?
I'm kind of biased on it because I feel like yes it is, because it's like, oh well, this makes me high, well then this other drug makes me high, so let's just continue. So I kind of see how it is, but then again, marijuana, from what I understand, isn't an addictive drug, and so it's like something you just want to kind of stick with. From what I'm aware of, it's not an unaddictive drug, so I don't know. I feel that it also isn't. I don't know. I don't really have a real answer for it.
I have an answer. This is my opinion. Yeah, I'm like old school. I feel like I'm with you as well. I don't think that it does, but I don't think that it can stem you to do other drugs unless it's in your bloodlines. When I say that is, if you come from a family to where there's no drugs, there's, just normal life pretty much, and you come across it, yes, I think that it depends on like what you're around and what you're seeing and who you're with and what you're doing. But if you come from a clean family, I don't think that it's a gateway to go to another drug. You know what am I making any sense?
Yes.
Like, but now if your parents was alcoholics, drug addicts, you're trying to find that fix of, I don't know how to say it. You're trying, it's something in you that's like, I need to be high, but you don't know if, hey, it could be alcohol, it could be weed, it could be cocaine, anything. So
one of the things, I was watching a documentary and they were talking about addictions, and from what the documentary was explaining, and I'm sure you have something to, but what the documentary was explaining, they were talking about pain and pleasure. And so anything can be addictive, because once you get that pleasure from it, it generates dopamine in your system. So once the dopamine, it gives you that pleasure. And so whether it's food, whether it's marijuana, whether it's anything, that's the addictive. And that dopamine is a chemical inside your body. Am I correct?
So I'm gonna go on record. I first want to say I'm a patient myself, so I consume myself, and I'm not afraid to say that openly. And number two, I want to always talk on behalf as a cannabis advocate. Cannabis itself is not what's addictive. It's personalities that are addictive. And then also, I want to put this out openly. If you are using blunt wrappers, which most of the youth are using as they are partaking, the tobacco in the blunt wrappers is what's addictive. So absolutely, I know for a fact, if these youth and anyone else is using tobacco leaves as they're rolling their cannabis, they are addicted. The problem is they're not addicted necessarily to the marijuana, because I have young people who smoke marijuana from 13 to 30, and they just quit. So that's what let me know that it's not the cannabis. And when I say just quit, like, I'm not smoking anymore, and that was it. So I know that that's not the addictive portion of it, but if we have addictive personalities, as coaches pointed out, yes, you're going to be addicted. You might be addicted to the form of bringing it to your mouth. You could be addicted to the concept of rolling it. There's addictive things that we do, but cannabis itself isn't. But if you're using blunt wrappers, I guarantee you're addicted.
And then you're going to start smoking cigarettes.
Well, they don't often smoke cigarettes. What they believe is they can't live without the cannabis. Their mind has triggered that I can't live without the cannabis. But what it is they've gotten themselves addicted to the tobacco.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, not the cannabis. It's the cigar, the tobacco in that too. So that's another habit that other kids are picking up as well.
Yes, because
not
they're being introduced to cannabis in the regard. So in our culture, we use blunts as a form of dosing. Mm-hmm. That's culturally done, right? Mm-hmm. So in our culture, we're passing that on to our youth. And I'd like to say get hemp wraps. So I said that. Buy hemp wraps. You can buy them in bulk. Buy them, have them at home. You see people come to the house, I got a hemp wrap for you. So I want to say that openly, switch to hemp wrap.
Okay, and Sean, before I take any calls, Sean, you've been itching to with the comment, so we're listening.
I just want to touch back on what you said. Okay, so you know how you said about the family and stuff like that, right? Okay. So what about peer pressure from friends in the outside community besides your family?
And again, that goes, and that's something that I have with my daughter. It's who you're around. So if you're around, say for example, you didn't been around it, you didn't seen it, but that's not you. As you being a teen, it's up to you to make a decision if you're going to be peer pressure into, oh, hey, I want to fit in and do what they're doing, or I want to go ahead and just say no and further my education. You have that option. You know, as far as, you get peer pressure everywhere. I don't care with anything. Right now, weed is just the main thing. Like they said too, kids just smoke because it's legalized. It's the hype of it. The more everybody sit here and talk about it and go on, it's a hype. So that hype right now is marijuana, and that's what they're doing. So I don't think that it's really peer pressure, because can't nobody make nobody smoke. If you don't want to smoke, you're not gonna smoke. So
I believe it's peer pressure, because the first time I smoked, absolutely, with peer pressure. You know what I'm saying? It was like, hit this. And so I hit it.
Understandable. I do agree with you. It is peer pressure.
If you go on social media, you will see kids smoking it right on social media.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I see
so
that all
and
the
that's
time.
and that in itself is a peer pressure. They wanna get some type of exception, some type of likes, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Of what's going on.
Exactly. That's the conversation too that I had with my daughter, because I asked her, not trying to put her on blast, but I asked her, like, honestly, like, what is it? Like, why do you want to smoke? And her response was, I'm gonna let her answer that.
Wait, you can't say you're not trying to put me on blast and then you just
and then pass the mic.
Right. You can't just do that. But she was like, okay, me, I'm not.
You can. I'll
trying to put it. Okay. But my response to it was, I'm not ready for it because I'm young, but like when I get older, I might want to do it a little bit, but it's not gonna get me anywhere. It's not gonna do anything for me. So I don't find the need of me to do it as often as other teens do it every day. Like it's a need for them to do it. Or like them posting videos like what you guys said, I find like it's just clout. Like they want to be part of something also. They also want to be part of something. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Trying to fit in.
Exactly.
Right. And how old are your sisters?
The second oldest is 12. The third oldest is 7. The other one, it's a lot. The other one is 5, and then we have a 10-month-old.
Oh, so you're the oldest.
Yeah, she's the oldest. Okay. If you want to call in and join this conversation, please do. The telephone number is 702-647-3688. 647-3688 if you would like to join in this conversation. So let me ask you, is there a method that any of you feel that would work in preventing our youth from using marijuana, or are you just kind of?
Well, most definitely. We spoke about the marijuana industry and the monies that that the marijuana, the cannabis industry is bringing in to the Las Vegas area. And you know, I've coached. I was a coach and I taught at Mojave High School. And I remember at one point in time, we only had one counselor staffed for about 3,000 kids. And so, you know, besides cannabis and other, I mean, there's other issues that the youth have in these schools. And so, you know, I think it's very important that people in our state legislature, our elected officials, really push on getting more money funded, you know, into our schools, because I think we need more counselors. We think we need more education. I think we also need more treatment options for parents. I've known parents that have approached me as a coach and asked me, where can I get my child help? And to be honest with you, there's not much here in Las Vegas for that. Not at the schools, not through your insurance. You know, it's very hard. I remember I was speaking with former city councilman Steve Ross, and he had challenges with his oldest son. And that's something that he mentioned. And one of the things that when he was running in his campaign that he mentioned to me is that he wanted to establish on-campus living facilities for teenagers who have challenges with not just cannabis, but all types of drugs. So that they could stay on a campus, still go to school, and be treated at the same time. The only facilities that I know of that's like that is up in Utah, and it costs something like $75,000 a year to send your kid to a facility like that. So those are things that I hope that our elected official, our state legislature looks at in terms of being responsible for our youth and putting some programs together that really goes directly at helping our youth, you know, in this environment that now we've created in terms of the legalization of cannabis.
Why didn't they think about this when they were going to legalize it? I mean, even if so I meet a lot of people, with the work that I do, I meet a lot of people from all over the world. And conversations that I've had with people in Colorado with marijuana being legalized. Yes, it brings a lot of money to that state, but their emergency rooms are bombarded with people literally, and this is what I was told, literally ODing on marijuana. Literally. So this is, you know, I've been told this is
That word is used loosely, but
right. I guess because of the different strands or whatever. Also, they're saying that the crime rate has risen.
but studies just showed that that's not true.
And well, I'm just,
I
don't know.
I know
I'm just
you're saying facts, but I'm saying facts back.
Right.
So the studies, they just dropped a story where that's not true.
And that's for Colorado.
Yes.
Okay.
But I just seen the story here in Vegas that our crime rate has been rising.
Okay. I don't think that it's.
And I'm not against marijuana, but, or excuse me, cannabis, but you know, I think my whole point of what I just said is that the state has to put things in place so people can get help, so people can get educated, so people can understand. So Canada, you know, we mentioned with the opioid problems. Canada has opened up places where you can go and use under a controlled environment, right. And also they offer, when they come in and use, they offer services so that they can get off. Mm-hmm. We don't have anything like that, not just in Nevada, but the whole United States.
And the thing that I foresee is it's really going to affect our community more so than any other community, because the youth aren't going to get jobs.
Yeah.
Not just the youth, but whoever is doing it. Because, you know, even though they say, oh, it's legal, but Steve Wynn is still going to drug test you.
But
Other
so
places
I
are
don't
still
want
going
to.
to drug test you.
So I don't want to interject again, but Caesars has just taken away their drug testing for cannabis. So I can foresee that as we move, and I know that there are a couple of fire departments that have also removed cannabis as one of their drug testing. So, and again, I'm not in here. I'm an advocate, so I keep track of what the real statistics are because I'm in these dialogues all the time. But I do want to go back to your original question was, what are they going to do with the money? Because I do believe that that is a legitimate question and it should be answered. Now, I know they haven't dispatched any of the cannabis money, so I want to say that openly. They haven't figured out how to put any of the money anywhere. So it's not just schools. They haven't put any of the money anywhere. I like to point that out because I know we have a school district problem, but I want to be clear. But I do believe that is as we're moving into, because bills have dropped. So as we're moving into legislature, we need to get on our elected officials and with this money because the money just keeps tallying up because I believe we're at 33 million. So as it keeps tallying up, we need to be clear and mindful when we're talking about our public officials where they want this money to go. And it's not just schools because $33 million is a lot of money. And we're just in our first year. And they had an idea of how much it should be. We exceeded that. So that's a lot of funds that are going to be flowing in. We want to make sure that that money that we're saying where we want the money to go, and that we're electing officials that will also have that in mind.
And I have two boys, and I remember when they were in grade school, and when 2008 hit, and there was a collapse in the economy, the Clark County School District took out the MAD program in the elementary schools, and that was all geared towards educating kids about alcohol and drug use, and they took that program out. I don't know if they brought that program back. What I'm seeing too is that it's not just high school. I'm seeing that it starts in middle school. That's when it happens. The using of cannabis and any drugs starts in middle school. So I believe that if money is going to be directed, it has to be directed in the elementary schools. Bring back programs like MAD or those programs so that these young kids going into middle school have a mindset and are prepared to deal with this.
I'd also like to see more cannabis education. So I do understand that we're coming from a mind frame of cannabis being a drug and the use of it being thereof. But I would like to move on the mindset of there being more education. I consider myself a cannabis educator. I advertise myself as that. And I think it's important that the more information that our youth has about the wholeness and the wellness of it, the more unlikely they are to abuse it. So, for example, when you tell kids that they should eat greens, right? You tell them all the time, you should eat your greens, eat your greens, eat your greens, and they don't want to eat the greens. It's mostly because you told them not to eat the greens, not because they haven't tasted it. They don't want to eat it because you told them not to. I believe over-educating is the answer to cannabis, what we would say introduction into our youth. If we over-educate them and give them more information, then what they'll do is dial back from it and say, I know about that and this is what it's used for and I'm not interested. So I think instead of moving towards what we would call drug education, I think moving towards education as a whole would be the answer versus the opposite.
So you think that in schools they should have a class that teaches about the pros and cons of cannabis?
I think they should have a holistic class. Let me be clear. I think they should offer a holistic class that teaches holistic living, period. I think they should be talking about agriculture. They should be talking about our eating habits. They should be talking about sugar addiction. I think they should be introducing that in elementary school so that as they mature, we're introducing new new eating habits, holistic lifestyle, holistic mindsets. And then overall, we're saying growing your own food, learn how to dig wells. I think we're missing that portion of education.
Did you guys, in high school, did you take health class?
Yes.
Did we go over those subjects? Some of those?
Like cannabis?
Yeah, drug use. It wasn't discussed. Because I taught health class and I thought we had a section in there.
At my school, they did actually.
Yeah, we have.
What school do you attend?
Well, right now I go to Legacy.
Okay.
And so they kind of just went over like a little bit. They always said, oh, cannabis is a gateway drug and just don't do drugs and keep your body in shape and exercise and this, that, and the other thing and live life to the fullest. But I know back in middle school, I actually had a really good teacher who actually would come to me and I would ask her questions about it because I came from a family where marijuana wasn't seen as a real negative thing. But then all those people around me say, oh, it's such a bad thing, this, that, and the other. And my teacher's like, well, at your age, yeah, it's a bad thing, and it can be used in positive ways, but now, like, it's seen as a negative connotation.
Okay. So do we even still have the DARE program?
That's what I was talking about. They took that out in 2008 when there was the collapse and, the funding was hard. They took DARE out, and DARE used to be in elementary schools, so that's been defunded.
Well, we're making enough money off of marijuana, so I'm hoping that they will institute those programs back. But Sean, let me put you on hold for one moment. Let me take this call. Caller, welcome to Ladies First. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I couldn't hear him. Okay, so I came in on the middle part of the conversation. I can hear you. I'm in my car, so can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, all right. So I came in on the middle of the conversation, and I guess I have some concern about, there was a question that was posed, and it was whether or not cannabis, marijuana, chronic, whatever you want to call it, is addictive. And I think the young lady said no. And I think we need to look at what the definition of an addiction is. An addiction could be if you're continuing to do an activity over and over, it's an addiction. So if you're smoking marijuana or whatever you want to call it, it's an addiction. We need to also focus on what it does to the chemistry within the brain. I'm appalled in the sense that we're having this conversation and we don't have experts on the panel to talk about this when you're having people of all ages listening to this radio station, and we know that our kids are influenced by whatever. And this being the big thing of today, not only for our kids, but for adults. But we're having this conversation and we do not have expert panelists including this conversation. So I'm really appalled by KCEP not having someone there to speak as an expert on addiction, whether it's marijuana, cocaine, crack, alcohol.
Okay, yes. You know what? We do have an expert. Aisha Goins is an expert. This is what, not on addiction, but this is what she does. And this conversation is about the youth. We need to know how the youth is feeling about this so that we know how to try and combat this. So for you to say that you're disappointed with KCEP, I'm disappointed with you for not even taking the youth, how they feel, in consideration. And I'm disappointed in you for not even being thankful that we're even having this conversation. I'm sorry for having a Franklin moment. Excuse me.
But I think she was... agree. But again, when I started out, I said I came in on the middle of the conversation. But I'm saying to you, as a listener, and you need not take this personal, we all have our opinions. The conversation, the direction of that conversation does not, in my opinion, does not come across as positive. We're looking to help our youth. We need to look at how this conversation is coming across. And I'm just saying that. So don't take it personal. We can disagree to agree. But I'm saying that as KCEP, as the panelist representing KCEP, and I'm entitled to my opinion, just like everyone else, and I'm not disrespecting you, so you don't have to come off with that tone.
Yeah, but
it's just, you want callers to call in. You don't have to agree with everything that KCEP or anyone else puts out. But I think you should at least acknowledge my opinion about the matter.
And you know what? I appreciate your opinion. I really do. But don't say that we don't have experts. The youth are experts because they're talking about it. Their opinions are experts because they're talking about it. We're not talking about addiction. I don't have a drug counselor on the panel to tell you about the addiction. What we're trying to do is talk to the youth and see, their feelings about it and what their understanding what their understandings are and their perspective. That's what this conversation is about. This conversation is about us as adults stepping back with our old school mentality about marijuana and listening to what the youth have to say. And yes, we do have Aisha Goins on here, who is an expert in what she does. And we will be doing another show because I do think that it's important to have a drug counselor in here to talk about this. So yes, thank you. Do I have time to take another call? Okay, caller please. Thank you for tuning into Ladies First.
I appreciate it. I know that was some exchange there. But my concern has always been that parenting has to be enforced here. And I know that sounds like that's not going to happen. But my problem is with poverty. My problem is not with marijuana because the adults and those who are able to vote cast their votes. That's what they want, marijuana. Yes. The youths don't have the ability to go into dispensaries and purchase marijuana, do they?
Yes. Well, thank you for your comment.
They're not available. Hello?
Thank you for your comment. We have to kind of wrap the show up now. Thank you for calling. Last word, well, not last word, but you have something you want to say quickly.
I just want to say that it's not real, like, I do agree with the last caller. It's not about the marijuana. It has to do, and that's another topic too, but it also has to do with the parenting as well, and you educating your kids and letting your kids know what it is, what they're taking, what they're getting into. Just like we sit here and we say, well, where everybody is saying that's against the marijuana, where is the money going? It should go here, it should go there. But then again, what about the people that's in the military that's coming back all discombobulated and really need it, and the kids that's in the house with them people that's seeing that? So it has its goods and it has its bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that parents this day and age need to have a very, very open and honest relationship, including this marijuana. I hope that each one of you got enough valuable information and knowledge about marijuana, cannabis. I'm correcting myself. Thank you, Aisha. And will arm yourself with this information and decide if it's something that is or isn't for you without any outside influences encouraging you to do what everybody is doing. I just say be your own individual thinker because it's your life and your future at stake. Thank you, Mr. Ramon Savoy, for your assistance. Thank you, Crazy Dee. Thank you, Tim's. Thank my panel, Aisha, Stephen Mumford, Cherie, Sean, my sister Lorene, my niece Armani. Thank you, Franklin. I'm Cheryl Langford. Thank you, family, for tuning into Ladies First. Have a wonderful weekend.
Just make